Yes, now your spirit is awake. So Apostle Paul is saying to us that our debt is not to sin. Owe anything to sin. How about that? We are not debtor to sin. We do not owe anything to sin. Instead, our everyday struggle is how to not repeat what you and I did yesterday, right? We are always striving to get better at what we do. Hopefully, we are not doing the same mistake we did yesterday, but doing something different today. See? So we don't owe anything to sin. We're trying to get out of it. We're trying to get better at what we do. Every day with Jesus is sweeter than the day before. It just we are striving every darn day, despite and in spite of what is going on with our lives. We are trying to be a better person. And so we do not owe anything to sin, but we owe everything to Christ. That is what Apostle Paul is trying to say. Because the Spirit gave us this power. Those who are in the Spirit, the Spirit gives this pronouncement that we are the child of God. And so how do we continue to do better and not be slave to sin? That is, his constant argument between spirit and the flesh. Remember, last Sunday I preached a little bit on that because he sees this constant struggle. And we agree, there is that struggle. We always want it to be good, wonderful, and yet this thing comes, and you are not thrilled and excited, and it just steals the joy out of you, and then bring nightmare to you. It's just like the accident. I didn't prepare myself that day. Start the car and say, I'm going to hit somebody today. No, it just happens. And you live with the consequences of that. Not you. I pondered, I wondered, I prayed. Why? How? Was I thinking something else? It's just human nature to just ponder on things recklessly, restlessly, that will gain you nothing. You see? And so we ask the Spirit of God to somehow restore the sanity. Take the burden away, so that everyday struggle does not oppress you down. Does it make sense? Because it has a way of just oppressing you. But how to enjoy life? Spirit that gives life within you. And so, Apostle Paul, if you read chapter 8 and even previous, how to live this victorious life. How can we be overcomer every day and worry less and live life to the max? How do we each day get up, refresh ourselves, and say, this is the day that the Lord has made, and I'm going to live God's way. If God was willing to lavish a new day to you, for you, then we have an opportunity, to live the best way we can. And living like that, if that is if that is the understanding and a sense of our mentality, then our lifestyle will exude that. I have an example. When I first came in 1982, I applied for a campus job. Humongous campus. And the day before I went to work, somebody told me that your boss is not the happiest man in the world. And so be careful how you deal with it. He's not going to be pleasant. He's not going to smile at you. He might just even tell you what you're not doing right. I said, oh, okay. So 8:30 I showed up at work. I punched it, and I just went and greeted the boss. Hello, how are you? And it just broke the ice. He just couldn't fathom that would happen. And he did smile. We did become good friends. And in the summer hours when the school was on break, I was working 60 hours a week. Yeah, something like that. I was really working hard. And then one day he called me and he said, do you ever get mad? I said, yes, I do. But I haven't seen you getting mad. Wow, what's the point of living life being mad at something that you have no control over? And then he says, so from today, I'm gonna call you Sunshine. So every day I went to work, he called me Sunny. How do we live our life? Whether you allow all this negativism to press you down, or you say, this is a wonderful day, and I'm going to live it. Turn the negative into positive, and try your best to bring joy in somebody's life. Lifestyle, right? It's about lifestyle. So ever since that time, for 7 years, he called me Sonny. So Apostle Paul is saying, we do not owe anything. And then it's kind of funny. It's kind of tricky, but very interesting. The way he just tells you something, and then he says, it's because you know what? We have been adopted in Christ. And so we cry, Abba, Father. See that? He's telling all these things, and then it's because we are child of God. We have been adopted by God. And therefore, we call him Abba, Father. Abba, Father. In my tribal language, Father is Abba. Koreans also call Abba. And there are other languages also say Abba. Abba. It's not sentimental, but it reflects some kind of intimacy, closeness, And this is what Apostle Paul is reminding them. We've been adopted. I go, wow. It's a singing before the worship is hitting me right now. So anyway, so I went to Department of Social Services in California, to understand the definition of adoption. And I think it is important to know the legal definition of the word adoption. And then we will look at what Apostle Paul is thinking. And then we are going to look at the Roman law at that time when the Apostle Paul was writing. Bring them together and see what we get. So here it is. In California it says, it is a legal process which permanently gives parental right to adoptive parents. Adoption means taking a child into your home as a permanent family member. It means caring for and guiding children through their growing years and giving them the love and understanding they need to develop their full potential. I think that's marvelous. So, upon agreement, they sign paper. And then they have this 30 days grace period. In that 30 days, you can say no, or you can say yes. After, shoot, I don't know if that will help. Thank you. All this is in the tape now. What do you do? So after 30 days, there is this irrevocable consent to adoption. It is done. People who go through adoption say it's a very time-consuming process. Anyone have done it? Yeah. Okay. So it is a long process, right? Yeah. Yeah. And everybody has different stories. If you're adopting a foreign child, it takes years. You know, you have to travel to Korea, you have to travel to China. Expensive deal. And then you have to negotiate not just with the social services, but you have to deal with the immigration, the government, and then our government. You know, it's a whole rigmarole process to really adopt somebody. And I know so many families who adopted Chinese and Korean kids. One of the largest states in the United States where there are so many Korean adoptees are in Minnesota. And a lot of them are good pianists, because that's how a lot of people think that Asians are good at math and piano, playing music. So anyway, so adoption is giving away, somebody taking them. And when adoption occurs, this child will have no record of the past, whether the child was an infant or teenage or whatever. This person will have no previous records that will hamper his or her future. The only thing this person brings with is the family DNA, right? Only family DNA, and then hopefully this child becomes, a very successful person. So, so that's the the American way of looking at adoption process. Um, Now I want to say something about the Roman government practice of the family law, uh, the legal process that Apostle Paul knew well, and the legal process people who are receiving the letter, who have been receiving encouragement, also knew about this law, and so he's trying to bring this law and helping Christian to understand our adoption in Christ. So here it is. Adoption, quote, adoption was always rendered more serious and more difficult in the Roman patria potestas, which in Latin means power of the father. This was the father's power over his family. It was the power of absolute disposal and control, and in the early days was actually the power of life and death. In regard to his father, a Roman son never came of age. No matter how old he was still under the patria potestas, father's grip, in the absolute possession and under the absolute control of his father. Obviously, this made adoption into another family a very difficult and serious step. In adoption, a person had to pass from one patria potestas to another. Make sense? One control of the father to another control of the father is what it's saying. So there are two steps. The first was known as mancipatio, which basically means, in the ancient Rome, transfer of property from one person to the other. It involves a formal sale, where the things being transferred had to be present, and 5 adult male citizens acted as witnesses. This process was necessary for transferring certain types of property called res mancipi in Latin, and was done through hand grasp ceremony. So in mancipatio was carried out by symbolic sale in which copper and scales were symbolically used. 3 times the symbolism of sale was carried out. Twice the father symbolically sold his son, and twice he bought him back, and the 3rd time he did not buy him back. Thus, the patria potestas was held to be broken. There followed a ceremony called vindicatio. The adoption father went to praetor, one of the Roman magistrates, and presented a legal case for the transfer of the person to the adopted into his patria potesta. When all this was completed, the adoption was complete. Clearly, this was a serious and impressive steps. That's how Romans did. But it is the consequences of adoption which are most significant for the picture that is in Apostle Paul's mind. There were four main process. The adopted person lost all rights in his old family and gained all the rights of a legitimate son in his new family. In the most abiding legal way, he got a new father. Number two, it followed it followed that he became heir to his new father's state. Even if other sons were afterward born, he did not affect his rights. He was in he had this inalienable right. Number three, in law, the old life of the adopted person was completely wiped out. For instance, all debts were canceled. He was regarded as a new person entering into a new life with which the past had nothing to do. Number four, in the eyes of the law, he was absolutely the son of his new father. End of quote from Barclay. Very interesting thing, isn't it? How the whole process was. And so Apostle Paul is trying to bring this heaviness of the process and trying to explain to them that, no matter where you have been in your life, no matter what you have done, good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. But God, through Jesus Christ, brought you home. And so you have been adopted. We are a child of God. Nothing that you have done in the past will impede your growth, your family identity. Because in Christ, even those has been washed away, eradicated. No longer it will haunt you for any reason. This is what Apostle Paul is trying to make the early Christian understand, and even for us, it is a very, very legal process. But God, through Christ, adopted us, and therefore we cry, Abba, Father, because of that intimacy. And so Apostle Paul is downplaying this flesh. Now, he talks about, if you live in sin, it's death. Now, he's not talking about physical death. He's not talking about the finality of life. But basically, he's trying to emphasize that when we don't live in the Spirit, the flesh will take you over. And in other books, he talks about flesh is the immorality, injustice, whatever, all those negative things that we can talk about. They take you over. In other words, you are dead even before you're dead, kind of thing he's trying to say. And then, so it's not physical death he's talking about, physical flesh he's talking about. He's using a metaphorical language to help us understand that flesh is more than this meat on our bones. And so he is trying to bring this spiritual understanding about our adoption. And I read this interesting. Oh, time has gone so fast. Okay, here it is. This is the last one. So I read this thing, and Lorelei would like it. Before Prince Charles was crowned as the king, Prince Charles has many titles. He is the heir apparent to the crown, His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, Duke of Cornwall, Knight of the Garter, Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Regiment of Wales, Duke of Rothesay, Knight of Thistle, Rear Admiral, Greater Master of the Order of the Bath, Earl of Chester, Earl of Carrick, Baron of Refnew, Lord of the Isles, and Prince and Greater Steward of Scotland. Those were her titles. But, and people addressed him as Your Royal Highness, right? But for William and Harry, his son, their son, no, his son, William and Harry, for them it is just daddy. It is just the father. And I think that is what Apostle Paul is trying to say. All of these things, but in Christ, God is just our Father. Just our Father. That relationship. And so, don't let any other things in your life diminish who you are in Christ Jesus. You are that child. Right?